values and based on the content of their character. How do you think we lost this, David, at some point?
I don't know. And again, like you say, every demographic group in the United States has examples of everything. And one of the things that I am sort of very disappointed by and upset by is what was historically a really important alliance between Jewish folks and Black folks in the United States that has to a little bit of a degree been ruptured because of some anti-Semitism within the Black community. And I told the story on my show, if the famous Mississippi burning story, where 3 people were killed. 2 of the 3 people were Jewish folks from New York City who understood the goals here are so similar between our groups of people. The historical circumstances have similarities, although they are not by any means the same. There are important value similarities where we should be allied here rather than butting heads. And it's disappointing to see that in certain enclaves that has completely broken down.
I finished doctoral studies at Clark Atlanta University. Clark Atlanta University has a connection to W.E.B. Du Bois. And we've always considered him to be one of our strong Black scholars. Obviously, he was a Black intellectual, but he also understood the necessity of Black progress in America. And so he created coalitions with Jewish Americans. And those coalitions were very strong, including the NAACP, which was a Jewish Black coalition initially in the foundation of it. But he also received criticism from people like Marcus Garvey. He received criticism from others who were for progress, but did not like his ideology. But I do find it quite interesting that today we can actually study both ideologies, both of these men as individuals, as well as leaders of a particular movement, and appreciate what they brought to the table while understanding we may not agree with every element they subscribe to. The nuance, that nuance doesn't exist in this era as it did back then or in the context of history. Do you agree?
I completely agree. And the other part of this that I think is important, and this is particularly relevant in the era of MAGA, and this is not exactly what you're talking about, but it's another layer. There's a reflexive instinct by some to say, this whole Kanye thing, it's not about anti-Semitism, it's about mental illness. He says he's not taking the pills that a Jewish doctor told him to take. This is mental illness, plain and simple. And it's really important not to see these things as either or one or the other. There's lots of mental illness and mentally ill individuals who have good or bad ideas, who have inclusive or discriminatory ideas. And also there is anti-Semitism and other types of racism and xenophobia that has nothing to do with mental illness, or it might overlap with it. And one of the other concerns when you talk about seeing people as individuals and evaluating the things they say, you don't have to ignore the content of what they say because there may be a mental illness component. And that's another thing that is unfortunately being used by some to sort of not necessarily excuse, but diminish the importance of the content of what Kanye has been saying.
We have to take things based on its impact. That's literally how we respond as a societal construct. This has great impact. Freedom of speech, let's talk about that before we have to end this interview. Freedom of speech is not freedom of consequence or freedom from consequence. Somehow, either Kanye or the people who support Kanye, and it is bigger than Kanye, I'm just utilizing this as a microcosm. Why would Kanye escape the cause and effect relationship of freedom of speech? Yes, but it does not mean freedom from consequence. We all have that dynamic connected to us. Anything we offer for the public will either be criticized or it will be supported. That's how this works. What are your thoughts about this sentiment now? A lot of it is pushed from the conservatives that suggest, and some flat out say, freedom of speech should mean freedom from consequence.
Yeah, I mean, that's not new. That's an old trope, which is they most loudly talk about freedom of speech, but they want there to be no consequences to them using that freedom of speech, which they claim someone else, I guess the left or Democrats, are trying to take away from them. There are absolutely consequences to speech, assuming that they are not a violation of one's First Amendment rights, valid, should be expected, part of the discourse and the dialogue that exists. One of the really unfortunate things that's happening with the Kanye situation is the fact that his outrageous speech is having consequences is being used to say, look, he's right. He said this stuff, and now the very Jewish media he attacked is silencing him. And that can be very difficult to escape the bubble of, and it's very damaging that that's taking place.
Earlier today, I saw this on social media, Tucker Carlson flat out saying that hate speech does not actually exist. Now remember, he's an ally now of Kanye West. Kanye West, I think, is more strategic than most people give him credit for, because he goes out of his way, David, to not offend racist white people. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. And I don't know whether these are ideas that we've heard over the last 3 weeks from Kanye that he stumbled upon himself, or whether people have been suggesting or giving him some of this material. But the material is aligning absolutely perfectly with what a lot of those racist folks already believe. And much like with Trump, they heard a little kernel of something that sounded pretty good. They're hearing it from Kanye right now.
David, always a pleasure, dear brother, talking to you. I appreciate what you continue to do in your advocacy and your platforms. For those who may be living under a rock and they don't know how to check out your shows, please tell them how they can do so.
Yeah, just my website's the central place, davidpakman.com.
Thank you, my friend. Until next time.
Thank you.
All right. Remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.
Welcome back to Unbossed. We are so glad you are here today. Let me tell you what we got in store. Elon Musk bought Twitter and is unleashing hell. No surprise there. Charlie Kirk opened his mouth and spoke, unfortunately. An exciting interview with the president of One Fair Wage. Can't wait to get there. But right now, I have one of TYT's very own Rebel HQ contributor, Ben Gleib. Ben, how you doing, baby?
I am good, Senator. How are you?
I am wonderful. So glad to have you here today. And I understand you got something exciting coming up, a stand-up comedy show.
I do indeed. I got my second hour special. We just actually dropped it on YouTube. It's called The Mad King. You can see the info right there. It's on YouTube. I think it's the best thing I've ever done, and I touch on a lot of the things that have been capturing the nation's zeitgeist recently, but it comes from an angle that not a lot of comedians come from. I come from morals and kindness with my jokes, and I still make you laugh. So you get both You don't have to tweak the way you look at the world to laugh at my jokes. Hopefully it fits right in your worldview. So I hope people check it out and share it and leave comments and all that stuff.
I hope they check it out too, Ben. I will. Morals and laughter at the same time.
Believe it.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to see this. Please, let's join Ben in his new stand-up. Oh, I sigh deeply. You all know when I start to sigh deeply, this is not a good start. So Elon Musk's new Twitter. I want you to watch this.
N-word usage jumped by 500% since Elon Musk took control of Twitter. And I'm not surprised, and you shouldn't be either. Because for real, for a lot of folks out there screaming they want free speech, what they truly want is the freedom to call you the N-word and not face any type of repercussions at all.
There it is. The use of the N-word has increased by 500% since this man has taken over. And I totally agree. A lot of people want the freedom to not only use the N-word, but to do all kinds of foolishness and mayhem on Twitter without having to be accountable. And many of these folks are cowards because they wouldn't dare say these things in people's faces. But this is what happens when you have someone like Elon Musk take over. Hate speech just overflowing like milk and honey. In addition to the insane rise of the use of the N-word, there is also anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ language popping up all over the place at rapid rates. Take a look at this. Anonymous trolling accounts ran tests on Twitter's modern policies by calling for the denaming of transgender people and the use of offensive terms like groomer. The Stop the Deal Coalition, there are groups out there who are fighting really hard to draw our attention to this. Groups were drawing our attention to this even before the transaction took place. But we do have groups that include Accountable Tech, Global Project Against Hate and Extremism, and Public Citizen. They all predicted that this would happen if Elon Musk was allowed to purchase Twitter. Elon Musk's plans for Twitter will make it an even more hate-filled cesspool, leading to irreparable real-world harm. Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Musk insisted he was buying Twitter, however, to bolster free speech. The only thing he is bolstering is hate speech. Take a look at this headline. Elon Musk, new owner of Twitter, tweets unfounded anti-LGBTQ conspiracy theories about Paul Pelosi's attack. He did that. And so folks are just all up on Twitter following the unleader, because that's what he is. And as a reminder, because we need to remind Elon Musk of something. There are certain things that free speech does not protect. And here they are. It's not protected by the First Amendment. Incitement, fighting words, obscenity, and defamation. None of those things are protected by the First Amendment. It's not a surprise when you have a wannabe dictator running Twitter that all of this madness is happening. Not surprising at all. Elon Musk ousts Twitter board named sole director. Here we go. Musk's inner circle worked through the weekend to cement Twitter's layoff plans. So not only did this man let the board go, he is laying off countless numbers of workers at Twitter. This is what you get when you get somebody like him taking over. Meanwhile, Fox said during Musk's initial negotiations, they said this, watch.
This is literally about saving civilization, because right now in America, democracy is not really truly democracy when one side of the table is completely censored.
It's a high stakes, big business, but at stake is free speech. I mean, can you imagine if you went on a platform and you just saw conservative thought and liberal thought at the same time, no one protecting us from someone's point of view?
Just said it's not worth it. It's a left-wing echo chamber. By the way, it's great to see the minions at Twitter freaking out. There's a lot of reports of employees there very concerned about their safe space.
They're all fired.
You have to change the corporate culture.
Ben, can you imagine Elon Musk being responsible for saving democracy, for saving free speech? But this is how the folks over at Fox see it.
No, that's understating it, Senator. Saving civilization. He's definitely going to do that by unleashing racists to feel more empowered to be extra racist. It is unreal what the opinion of these broadcasters are, these right-wing nut jobs, for lack of a better word, that act with complete false equivalency and speak as though there is some sort of banning of conservative thought. That is just an outright lie. Conservatives are all over Twitter. People pretty far right are all over Twitter and have never been banned. I have a subgroup, and I don't know if we can say the full word of what it's titled on my Twitter, where I follow every day the posts of dumb AS, and then another one of those letters, Republicans that are posting all day, every day, ignorant, stupid things. That is not banned on Twitter. What's banned is hate speech. What's banned is dangerous disinformation meant to put people or groups of people at risk, to put a target on their backs, to increase the amount of hate that all that does is put people at danger through misguided, uninformed, irresponsible people that are just there to throw firebombs into the public discourse. That is all that has been banned from it. And it is a complete lie when Elon Musk says he's doing this to make it a fair and open public square. That's what it is. Just taking out those horrible actors I just mentioned does not make that worse. And he already is realizing it to some degree, because already realizing that advertisers are gonna flee in droves as soon as he doesn't moderate any sort of speech, immediately says there'll be no changes until we have a content moderation council put in place. Don't worry, we're gonna figure it out. Oh, you mean kind of like it is now, you idiot? You see, this guy did not want to run Twitter, it doesn't seem, like his other very successful companies, Tesla and SpaceX, which are serious endeavors to him. He's a troll in his personal time and wanted the ability to be chief troll. I mean, he changed his own Twitter bio to chief twit. Yeah. And that's what his own goal is. Be a twit.
He wanted to be king of the trolls.
Yeah, he wanted to be king of the total twit. That's what he wants.
And it's funny, Ben, that Fox is talking about the suppression of free speech. I want to know if you remember this.
But it's also scary because I shouldn't be numb to your racist comments. I shouldn't be numb to your behavior.
I'm numb to this commentary. Like, must they run their mouths like that? Oh, and LeBron and Kevin, you're great players, but no one voted for you. Millions elected Trump to be their coach. So keep the political commentary to yourself. Or as someone once said, shut up and dribble.
Laura Ingraham, just shut up and dribble. I guess Fox doesn't remember that.
Ooh, God, that's so painful when I see that clip. It's, first of all, their lack of self-awareness over and over again is unreal. She's literally on a show as an unelected human, sharing her political opinions, showing a clip of another show of unelected people saying, how dare you share opinions? You're not elected. Come back to my unelected opinions.
Right.
And then to take it further and repeat the incendiary and insane shut up and dribble, which is something I talk about in my special too, about all these protests. That came from LeBron defending Kaepernick during the anthem protests. And what Fox News does so well, as does so much of the right wing media in this country, they remove the actual issue and we never get to debate the actual issue. Never was even 10 minutes on the news, let alone Fox, talked about what the protests during the anthem were about. Police brutality, equal justice under the law, equal treatment for all communities. And it instead became, should he be allowed to protest? One step removed from the actual issue. Then LeBron chimes in. Of course he should be. Now it should be LeBron. Should LeBron be allowed to comment about Kaepernick, whether he's allowed to take a knee? And they just pull it as far as possible from actually discussing the oppressive ways that this country does its business. It's disgusting.
Well, they only agree with dissent if it's their dissent, not other folks' dissent. That's how it goes.
Right, which also is not dissent in their eyes. You're not agreeing with dissent if you agree with it.
Right, that's exactly right. And then how about this? The far right really does know how to play victim when they can't be openly racist. I want you to take a look at this.
I think the term racist, Chris, has become a label that is too often deployed by the left, Democrats in this country, simply to try to silence and punish and suppress people they disagree with, speech that they don't want to hear.
Well, I am going to go out on a limb, Ben, and say I do disagree with hate speech. I do disagree with the use of the N-word. I do disagree with transphobia and homophobia and all of I do disagree with speech that incites and could get people hurt, because there are folks who are wired to this kind of language that will act out violently. So, oh yeah, we are going to stand up and say that we are against that kind of speech. But it's the kind of free speech right-wingers like to hear. How about this?
I mean, you put your kids on a school bus, you expect safety, but in Obama's America, the white kids now get beat up with the black kids cheering, yeah, right on, right on, right on, right on.
So, with an A on the end. Well, I think I can now. Isn't that the point? Because it's not racist.
Rush Limbaugh, thank you for your decades of tireless devotion to our country.
See, for these folks, they don't get it. That word, the N-word, was created by white racists to dehumanize black folk. That's why that word was created. And the fact that in the 21st century, we have somebody like Musk who is creating an environment for folks who are still racist or racist adjacent to use that word really should be unacceptable for everybody. White folks don't get to use that word. And let black people have a family meeting about how they use the word or how we use the word, but don't you jump into that. We know the history behind that word, Ben, and they know it. Blacks were beaten, they were raped, they were dehumanized, degraded. All of the horrible conditions by which that word was used. And somebody like Rush Limbaugh and others, I know he's dead now, got the pure unadulterated gall to try to be the dictators of speech that doesn't align with what they have to say. And the man said, Ben, he said, I guess I can start using it now. Has no understanding of the historic underpinnings of the use of that word. None.
100%, 100%. I mean, you see in Rush Limbaugh's very phrasing there, how eager he is to be able to, he was to be able to use that word. He goes, yeah. I think I can say it now, almost like he's chomping at the bit to be able to say it. And these people in positions of power and privilege do not realize that when they say something for entertainment value, they pretend to think on their right-wing platforms, or when Stephen Miller, the fact that anybody has Stephen Miller on a show as an arbiter of what should be hate speech or not, a white supremacist, neo-Nazi, horrible human being sitting there and saying what should and should not be interpreted as hate speech, they think they can say something on the air and just light a torch under somebody and just say something and see what happens. Because when people don't have that same level of privilege and don't go back to their ivory tower, it sets off a fire to those who are even less educated, are less aware of what they're doing. So to me, there is no more racist adjacent. If you are adjacent to racism, yes, you are racist. You're just a coward racist who's kind of saying it or letting others do it. If you don't condemn horrible hate speech and racism, you are that. You're just a cowardly version of it.
You're right about that, Ben. Absolutely right. There are really real world consequences behind what Elon Musk is allowing to happen on Twitter. And for example, I want people to look at this data quickly, Ben, before we move on to our next story. And we see that the bias motivation categories for victims of single bias incidents in 2020, victims of hate crime incidences, over 8,000 single bias incidents involved over 11,000 victims. And in 211 incidents, a total of 346 victims were targeted because of more than one bias. We got to be able to check our biases at the door and not promote those biases, not promote the base instincts of human beings. But here we have it. Elon Musk stoking the flames of those base urges. We got to continue to push back on this. You got to join us in pushing back on this. Oh, Ben, I got something. Your favorite person in all the world, Charlie Kirk. Oh, Charlie. Listen to this.
Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home? Why are we to blame for that exactly? And why is he still in jail? Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out. I bet his bail's like $30,000 or $40,000. Bail him out and then go ask him some questions.
This man is ridiculous. Let's put up his tweet, because Ben, I want you to jump in here right away. This historic event will likely be one of the largest, most consequential in American history. The team at Trump Students and Turning Point Action are honored to help make this happen, sending 80+ buses full of patriots to DC to fight for this president. So it's just a buildup to what this man stands for. So now he's telling his followers to go and help to bail out the man that attacked Paul Pelosi in his home with a hammer. And then we see the tweet that is part of what he stands for, the continued rallying cry for President Trump, who definitely incited what happened in this country on January the 6th. Ben?
Yeah, and Charlie Kirk did too. I mean, that tweet was part of what I called him out on during my debate, which was mostly about abortion rights. And at the end of the debate, I called him out on his sending 80 buses of college students to DC on Jan 6 and basically sponsoring the insurrection attempt on our government. And I got him to storm out of his own show. He left me alone on his own set. You can see there a clip of the infamous dolphin fetus clip where I embarrassed him. And then the rest of the debate, you can see the whole thing on my YouTube again and again and again. I embarrassed him. Why? Sure, I was researched, but more so because it's easy. When you are an idiot that is just trolling people and disingenuously pretending like you don't understand what it is that you are doing, you're easy to defeat. We just need to keep up the fight and sharpen our attacks to stop the dangerous attack to these people. In that clip about Paul Pelosi, they keep doing this. They keep taking advantage of the malleable brains of their followers that we already make clear why they're responsible. This person was a QAnon adherent. This person was believing lies about our political leaders and about our government, and then broke into the House, tried to find Nancy Pelosi, was gonna kneecap her so that she'd be wheelchaired into Congress so everybody else sees there are consequences for their lies. And by lies, they mean the truth, that they have been misled to believe are lies. And then Charlie Kirk goes, why are we to blame for that? As though someone just said a riddle no one can solve. Because you incite it. Because you allow the lies, because you deny the election, because you pretend there's fraud, because you pretend these Democrats are up to things that they are simply not up to, because they can't debate the merits. They cannot debate the merits of the issues. No. So they change the topic and diffuse and deflect and make it seem like we're crazy by just trying to hold them to account. It's disgusting. And that kind of speech, making it seem like this person should be bailed out just to ask questions. Yeah, as his face shrinks more and more.
It's mind numbing, and I'm glad that you forced him off of his own set.
Proud moment for me.
Proud moment. I just want to put up just really quickly, he's asking people to go bail out this guy, but that's not gonna happen anytime soon. Let's look at the charges. What David DePepe is being charged with: attempted homicide, assault with a deadly weapon, aggravated battery with serious bodily injury, threatening a public official or family member, elder abuse, and burglary. He could be facing a maximum of 50 years in prison for that attack. So Charlie, no, he will not be bailed out anytime soon. Ben, we coming right back.
Can't wait.
Welcome to Happy Half Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
let's
flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word.
Okay.
This is the one of everything.
I got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull.
Drink it. Swallow it.
No.
Spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this. Cheers to Brett Ehrlich. Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening?
No, that's just wrong. Every way.
And we'll see you next time.
Hey, Dave. As you can probably see, Skype froze. Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Welcome back to the show. My favorite part. Let's see what the viewers have to say. We have Tall Glass says, I will not miss Twitter. Not one lotta. I hear you. I guess Tall Glass Ben is predicting that Twitter is gonna lose a whole bunch of folks. And on Twitch, Eat the Rich says, in solidarity, Nina and Ben, in solidarity. Thank you so much. Solidarity back to you too, Eat the Rich. Don't eat them without seasoning now. Eating them up real good.
I've been watching Dahmer's. Hope they don't mean it literally.
Yeah, they don't mean. Yeah, I couldn't take that then, but yeah, they don't mean that literally. We got to state the obvious. I do want you to remember Brittany Griner is still in prison in Russia. Every single day we remind you of that here on Unbossed. Please support her family. Please support organizations that are supporting her family. And if you use social media, the family is asking that we hashtag #WeAreBG. That is hashtag #WeAreBG. We're sending our prayers and our thoughts to all of the Griner family and to the people and organizations who are continuing to fight to free her. And don't forget, TYT is doing this part to help our sisters and brothers and family and friends in Jackson, Mississippi. And you can join us. We can't do this without you. So go to tyt.com/relief. That is tyt.com/relief. Let's keep helping our family in Jackson, Mississippi. So millions are rationing their insulin. 1 million Americans are doing that right now as we speak. You heard me right. 1 million Americans, 1 million Americans. People in this hegemonic nation are rationing their insulin. And the story should make you want to holler, make you want to scream. Well past Halloween, we should take to the streets demanding that this is not the case in this hegemonic nation. It is an absolute failure. on the part of the United States of America. So in 2021, 1.3 million Americans rationed their insulin due to the high cost of the drug. A study by the Harvard Medical School found the following. And to put this into perspective, that's 1.3 million people. That's about 16.5, we could round that up, 17% of the US population with diabetes in America. We're not talking about an undeveloped nation. We're talking about a developed nation, an industrialized nation known as the United States of America. Almost 17% people rationing their insulin, people who have diabetes. The study also found that insulin rationing was most commonly reported by those with health insurance coverage. Let me say that one more time. Yeah, Ben, right? Insulin rationing was most commonly reported by those without health insurance and individuals under the age of 65, not eligible for Medicare. Black insulin users were more likely to report rationing insulin at 23.2%. So reported most often by people without health insurance, no surprise there. And not only are we dealing with people who don't have health insurance, we're also dealing with people who are underinsured, who still might not be able to afford it. So they do have insurance, but they don't have enough of it to cover the cost. And you saw the stat, over 23% of Black folks with insulin, with diabetes, are rationing. So there is a race dynamic to this as well. Ben, your thoughts?
I mean, this again is the biggest stain on our nation. It's a disgrace that in what's supposed to be the richest, and as people still try to claim best nation in the world, to not be able to take care of the basic health care needs of your people. It proves the exact opposite. It is insane that we can't get that figured out. When it used to be like $19 a vial just a handful of years ago, I have it in my notes here, like 1999, it was $21 a vial and has jumped in 2019 to $332 a vial, where in most other industrialized nations, it still is hovering around 19 or 20 or $21. That is a crime against humanity, and it's against our own people. And somehow we always have money to subsidize wars. We always have money to send towards foreign wars and towards killing and bombing and supporting the military industrial complex. And we do not have money to take care of the health needs. And people literally are dying. It's not a joke. Anecdotes abound, evidence abound of people, young people having to ration their insulin, causing them to die, to lose their lives because we have a greedy Congress that cannot apportion their money correctly. And sadly, we have a lot of corporate Democrats standing in the way of that, because we had, for the last 2 years, enough votes to pass anything we wanted to. But we have Manchin and Sinema and many others that are more beholden to, or a handful of others, more beholden to the pharmaceutical industry and to the powers that be. And so that's why November 8th, our midterm elections or voting in advance, is so crucial, because I know we lose faith. I know we think we keep saying it's the most important election and nothing changes. It's because we're not getting the size of majorities that we need. If we get just 2 at least, but probably more like 5 Democratic senators more in office and keep control of the House, we will pass these things to make this change. There's the Stop Insulin Inflation Act now, or the exact title of it is the Affordable Insulin Now Act, to cap it at $35. That will pass if we get just a handful more Democratic senators in there to be able to have more to outweigh even the anti-American Democratic senators standing in the way of saving American lives. It's easy to do, and while our system is bad and while we should be protesting this, our biggest and most urgent protest is November 8th. We still have a vote. We might not long after these midterms, depending how many election deniers get put in there and dismantle our democracy further. But this is our chance to save our democracy and save American lives at the same time. Seems like a win-win, and the choice is easy.
Well, it is our chance. This is the most important election. Just like next year, you're gonna hear me say the same thing. I know politicians say that every time because every single election is important. And Ben, as you laid out, we are really fighting against neo-fascism. which is much more dangerous in the short term than neoliberalism. We will deal with both of these lesser of two evils, but we must deal with neo-fascism, and that is what is speeding our way. Got to get out there to vote. Voting is the last part of this, but you got to get out there, and then we're going to continue to fight. And the point also, Ben, that you made about these Republican-like Democrats. So this can't be just about electing any kind of Democrat, because Democrats do have the majority. They asked for that majority in 2020, and then realized that they needed more of a majority. But the bottom line is they asked for the majority and they got it. And they got members in their own caucus that will not stand up and do the right thing. And those folks must be dealt with as well. You mentioned also the fact that there are some real life consequences for people having to ration their insulin. This is not a game. This really is life or death. So we're gonna put this up. Insulin rationing. Any person who is doing it is living a painful, horrible, non-productive life. Just imagine if someone was asking you to take 1 breath per minute, and that's all you're allowed because you can't afford the $100 that you would have to fork out if you were allowed to have oxygen for the next 59 minutes. That's insulin rationing. You're withholding a vital hormone for life. Angela laying that out. She lives with diabetes. And again, I want to thank Michael from The Guardian for writing this story. And she lays that out in a way that we can all imagine. If you were told 1 breath and that's it, unless you got $100 to get the other 59 minutes. That is what it's like not having your insulin. And the very instant that I cannot afford insulin, death is literally staring me in the face and I would die within 24 hours. Again, Angela she lives with type 1 diabetes and she is sharing her story. Here's another horrible situation too, we wanna draw to your attention. So Janelle, who lives in Iowa, she lost her 32-year-old son, Jesse, a type 1 diabetic, after he started rationing his insulin because he lost his job and with it his health insurance and died in early 2018 from diabetic ketoacidosis. Yeah, and he younger person. So this happens no matter what age you are. If you do not have the ability to have your insulin, you are really playing with your life. And you don't want to play with your life. The people who have diabetes, they're not trying to play with their lives. This is happening because of the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. This is happening because we allow healthcare to be commodified in the United States of America. It is that way and it doesn't have to be that way. Let's remind folks of how much insulin costs in other nations. Shall we? Yeah, we shall. Let's go on back down this lane. We've been here many times. So in the United States, it is almost $100. Chile, $21 and some change. Mexico, $16 and some change. Japan, $14.40. Switzerland, a little over $12. Canada, $12. Germany, $11. Korea, $10. Luxembourg, $10 and some change. And let me go back to Korea, $10 and some change. And Italy, $10 and very little change. About 1 in 10 Americans have diabetes. We cannot allow this to persist. And that is why we need to elect folks who actually give a damn about the people that they are supposed to serve. This is criminal and it is also deadly. We can't play around with this. Ben, I'm exhausted by just even thinking about that, but we're gonna keep talking about this story. We talk about it often, and it's all about universal healthcare in this country, and it's also about not allowing the greed of the pharmaceutical industry to literally kill people in this country. And the third point is also about politicians answering to their owner donors, which is why we are in this situation.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we did finally get universal healthcare in this country for those who can afford it.
That's it. That's it. And those elected officials we were talking about in Congress, they got the best health insurance our tax dollars can buy.
That's just that's such a good example, Senator, because it's just so obvious that the one law we should pass real quick is every single thing that the American people have to deal with is what the people in Congress should have to deal with. It should be they're straight up on the Affordable Care Act. They don't get special health care. Let them live, because people don't make a change until they live the way we live. Otherwise, they see it as something expendable. Our lives, literally expendable to these people.
Literally. I mean, it's happening. It's been happening for far too long. There have been many efforts to get universal health care in this country, and because of the bad type of politics, it has not happened yet. But
also, Senator, maybe just quickly in defense of these people in Congress that won't pass these things, let me just say, I'm sure a lot of Americans are patriots out there, and they would be willing to sacrifice breathing to line our Congress people's pockets more. I think that a lot of people would be like, I don't need to breathe. You guys get richer. I'm happy for you. Go buy another boat, Senator Manchin. Go do your thing. I'll hold my breath till you're back. That's a fair compromise.
Till you're back. Oh my God. So Rikers prison death. So at Rikers, there's a lot of death going on. Unfortunately, because the people in charge are not taking care of their business and treating the people in their care like human beings. So the squalor at Rikers Island is deplorable, and the consequences of what is happening at Rikers could be deadly. I want you to take a look at these two tweets. Today, and I want to thank Tatrow for getting this out there. Today, Rikers Island claimed its 18th victim this year, the death toll in the NYC jails at its highest since 2013. People are not just dying on Rikers Island. The jail is killing them through a combination of mismanagement, racism, and horrid conditions. It's a hellhole. And so the photos that you see and courtesy of the NYC Board of Corrections, you can see the squalor, you can see the filth, you can see what people are living in. So filthy floors sullied with rotten food, maggots, urine, feces, and blood, plastic sheets for blankets, cardboard boxes for beds, and bags that substitute for toilet. What Rikers looks like at a cost to the taxpayers of $1.2 billion a year. And this really disturbed me so much. And looking at the photos reminded me, and I know that they're not just only African American people at Rikers, but it reminded me so much, this description reminded me so much of the bowels of the slave ships, where slaves were enslaved people were side by side. They could not turn to the left or to the right, and defecation everywhere, and the stench everywhere. And to see those pictures, although there's not any comparison to what it was like for enslaved Africans and then their descendants, but just like a snippet of that made me think, wow, this is certainly a 21st century version of that in many ways.
You're absolutely right that it is. And it is straight up modern day slavery in two big ways. One, because it's disproportionate who is persecuted and prosecuted for crimes oftentimes that were not even committed, but even when they are committed, it still is a completely racially unjust system when people who are in communities that cannot afford better lawyers end up in places like this, and those that can afford it do not. That means that we are living in a stratified, unjust system. And then reason two is because a lot of people are sent to Rikers when they are awaiting trial. They're sent into a literal hellhole when they have not been convicted of a damn thing. And they don't sit there for a day or a week. They can't afford bail. And so they sit there sometimes for 6 months, a year, and sometimes longer. And these people die. A friend of mine, Eliza Orleans, is a public defender in New York. And so often her clients and so many others get sent to Rikers because the system is unjust and does not value the lives of Black and brown people, does not value the lives of the people who are economically disadvantaged in this country, and they cannot afford the top tier representation that can get them off on technicalities that have
and Ben, just to a point that you just made, I want us to put up the data point about where the United States ranks in terms of imprisonment. And the point that you made about most of the men and women held at Rikers Island are there for pretrial, meaning they haven't been convicted of anything. Like I just want that to marinate for folks. I want them to understand that they have not been convicted of anything, and they're only awaiting hearing on the disposition of their cases. And some have lived at Rikers for years. Recently, both the population and the average length of the stay in city jails have increased nearly 30%. So let that marinate with that. And then the next slide that we want to show you is that America, again, ranks #1 on the stuff that is not edifying. The #1 in the world for imprisoning folks. It makes absolutely no sense. So again, the injustices in the legal system cannot continue to stand. We got, Lord Ben, we got a whole lot of fighting to do, and they got me calling on Jesus a whole lot. The Fed chair wants to increase rates, increase interest rates. I know we just kind of jumped into the next one, but that is what is happening. Federal Reserve is at it again, and Reserve Chair Jerome Powell wants to come for your hard-earned money. He's proposing hikes in the interest rates yet again. So here's what's happening. The Federal Reserve is expected to increase interest rates again by about 0.75% or 75 percentage points at its meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday. Doing so would put even more strain on workers and reduce consumer confidence just days before Americans head to the polls, and potentially help Powell's GOP colleagues win back control of the Congress. So the Fed has already increased or hiked the interest rates already. There's something wrong with a system that needs to hike the rates and try to drive down wages to correct itself. That doesn't seem like a very fair system to me. But the Fed has repeatedly increased interest rates to constrict wages, therefore supposedly helping to ease inflation. But that relief hasn't happened, largely because of corporate greed and price gouging. Let's see what Dr. Robert Reich, former labor secretary, had to say about this situation.
The truth about inflation is getting covered up by countless myths spewed by corporations and their political lackeys. Here are the facts. Fact number 1, inflation is not being driven by wage increases. Although wages have been rising, they've been rising more slowly than prices. Hourly wages grew by 5% in the past year, but prices rose 8.6%. This means when you adjust for inflation, workers actually got a 3.5% pay cut over the past year.
So former labor secretary is laying it down. Ben, just in our final few moments, please weigh in on this. And I want the team to put up the tweet by Dr. Robert Reich while you give your remarks about this situation.
Robert Reich's videos are always so informative. I recommend following him on YouTube. He's got great ones. But this is the key, is that yet again, the workers are expendable in this country. The workers can always apparently bear the brunt. The ones who already can't afford the life that is being set up and enabled by our leaders are expected to take the brunt of it. And they can't take any other measures. How about put on some price controls during a hard time, during coming out of a pandemic, when we're funding a war in Ukraine? How about we say you can't price gouge, you can't be moving towards record profits and upping and upping and upping your profit margins when people suffer? No, instead it's all political, even all the way to the Fed, and gonna manipulate our rates it's been proven yet again, like you said, to not be doing it. And all it does is hurt workers, and if it pushes more Republicans into office, we are in big trouble, not because of even political reasons, because of the instability they bring to the entire system of this country that's already hanging on by a thread. We need to come out to those polls and make sure we can counterbalance. If we come out in record numbers, if young people come out in record numbers, we have 2-to-1 over older people in this country. Younger people can take control of this country next week if you go vote, and hope we can counterbalance all of these bad forces and then kick these people out of office and make a more and more progressive Congress that hopefully can start changing some of these issues, because we're losing the battle right now.
Yeah, we need it. I mean, this is vitally important. Ben, you're absolutely right. We need people to get out to vote. And then after they vote, they got to get to work. We cannot accept things as they are. And when you do vote, that vote is transactional. Those people you put in office owe you something. They owe you something, your family, your community, and this nation. These folks got to get right. And they're not gonna get it unless we make a demand. Ben, it was so wonderful to have you on Unbossed today. I cannot wait to have you back. Thank you so much. Please, you all don't forget to check out Ben's comedy show on YouTube. You don't want to miss it. Love, compassion, and laughter with morality mixed in. Baby, that's a brew we don't want to miss. We'll be right back after this.
We're very honest that we're progressives. We call the Young Turks home of progressives, and we support progressive candidates.
There has been this reemergence of political activism, especially among young people.
This weekend was the second Women's March, both across the US and across the world. So these people are not simply marching, they're not simply talking, they're also running for office. And when they do run, they're gonna make a difference.
Joe Crowley is congressman from New York. He's very powerful. Why? He raised a lot of money. But there's someone finally challenging him.
We need to have representation that advocates as fiercely for working class people as possible from this seat.
If candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even get a little bit of media attention outside of what the Young Turks does, they have an excellent chance of winning. She's gonna win. She's gonna win.
68% reporting.
The majority of Americans want Medicare for all. So I don't care what you and your corporate cronies want. What I care about is what the American people want.
We believe in total change. Everything runs on donor money. And that is what we will fight. And that is exactly why they don't like us. We're having fun. It's election night.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated Joe Crowley.
Here we go again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Crowley. Down goes Crowley. Down goes Manafort. Down goes Cohen. Women came out in record numbers in the primaries. They said you'll be lucky to get one candidate. We now have 12 that have won their primaries. Bezos and Amazon announcing that they are going to go to a 15-hour minimum wage.
We're making progress. Let's keep going.
Many of these women made history.
The biggest victories, all women of color. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, Sharice Davids and Deb Haaland.
And I want to go to Congress because I want to change those things.
I'm calling it. Jamal Bowman has won. Down goes Engel. Down goes Engel.
For a long time, we have not had progressives in power. It's going to be something to behold.
Welcome to the Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
let's
flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word. Okay. This is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull.
Drink it, swallow it,
No.
spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this. Cheers to Brett Ehrlich. Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening? No, that's just wrong. Every way. And we'll see you next time.
Hey, Dave. As you can probably see, Skype froze. Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Welcome back. On to our viewer comments. We have TYT member Urban Hermit says, economists have us accept that giving banks a raise and hammering everyone else is the answer. I totally agree with that. They kind of got folks brainwashed on that. And on Twitch, Two Man says, this was not what the creator of insulin wanted. That's what they sold. That's why they sold the patent for $1. No, they did not want this at all. And on YouTube Super Chat, Manuel says, Nina telling the truth. I love it. Spread the word. Your word is like fire, Nina Turner. I heard that, baby. I receive it. I receive that, Manuel. Thank you so much. So excited about this next interview that we have with Saru Jaraman. And Saru is the president of One Fair Wage. She is out there doing the daggone thing on behalf of workers of this nation. She's not only the president of One Fair Wage, but she's the director of Food Labor Research Center at UC Berkeley. She co-founded the Restaurant Opportunity Center, which grew into a national movement of restaurant workers, employers, and consumers. She was listed in CNN's top 10 visionary women. Yes, she was. She's an attorney, an activist, an author, and her books, One Fair Wage, Ending Subminimum Pay in America, Forked, A New Standard for American Dining, and Behind the Kitchen Door. Saru, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show with us today. How are you doing?
Sorry, I'm mute. I'm really good. Thank you for having me. Thanks for having me. It's really great to be with you.
So tell us a little bit about One Fair Wage.
We are an organization of 280,000 restaurant and service workers, also 2,500 restaurant owners. I'm actually sitting in a restaurant right now, and several thousand consumers all working together to raise wages, both in the restaurant and service sector and across the country, and to improve sustainability in the service sector. And our big fight forever has been to end the subminimum wage for tipped workers, which is a direct legacy of slavery and a source of poverty and sexual harassment for a workforce that's mostly women.
And Saru, our connection is a little shaky. I want people to be able to hear everything that you have to say. Now, you were talking about the tip workers and that whole notion of tip workers being linked to slavery, a vestige of slavery. And how much do tip workers make currently in the United States for the most part?
It's still just $2.13 an hour. That's the current federal minimum wage for tipped workers. But 43 states persist with this legacy of slavery. And in 4 out of 5 states, the wage is $5 or less. So $2 is the absolute bottom. But most states, even blue states, Senator, have wages of $2, $3, $4, $5 an hour. Your great state of Ohio is still just $4.
And people depend on those tips. And so I want folks to
65 cents an hour. And you've got to
Yeah, I mean, I don't think a lot of folks, when they go out to eat, if they're blessed enough to be able to go out to eat, that they understand how hard those workers are working, and they're making very little for that very labor-intensive work that they're doing. So we need to be kinder, and we need to make sure that we can tip. And that goes hand in hand with increasing the minimum wage, because oftentimes we need people to be able to have disposable income to be able to go to a restaurant, not just to buy the food, but to also be able to go to the restaurant and be able to tip. All of these things go hand in hand. So Saru, there is something amazing happening in Ohio. Let's play this video real quick of these two celebrities who have joined on to help One Fair Wage.
Restaurant workers all over the country are rightly refusing to work for less than the minimum wage.
Tipped restaurant workers in Ohio only earn $4.65 an hour.
This is our moment to get $15 minimum wage on the ballot in November 2024. We need to collect over 400,000 signatures from registered Ohio voters.
Come to Ohio and help collect signatures during the state's 3 election days. Join hundreds of volunteers from Ohio and across the country who are excited to get Ohio workers the raise they deserve.
Come to Ohio to help collect those signatures so we can get this on the ballot and let the people of the great state of Ohio weigh in on increasing the minimum wage. And we're doing that right now, Saru, right here in my great state. I'm so glad that the team, One Fair Wage, is here. I'm so happy that you're doing what you're doing. And we're gonna have you back on so that you can continue to update us. I am thrilled to be a part of this effort and of this movement. We're gonna do this all over the country. So glad that we're starting it right here in Ohio with collecting the signatures anyway, because we're doing it all over the country, but this is an opportunity to collect those signatures. So if people wanna help and participate, where should they go?
You can just send us an email, info@onefairwage.com, onefairwage.org. It all goes to the same place. And send us an email and say you're going to join us in Ohio to volunteer on Election Day, or even after Election Day. Come to Ohio anytime and help us collect these signatures, because we're trying to get on the 2024 ballot to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
There you have it. Well, Saru, we will definitely have you back. And thank you so much for the work that you and the team do at One Fair Wage to increase the wages so that our sisters and brothers and family and friends can have a living wage. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you. So our backbone today, I've been talking about the jawbone. Many of you are familiar with the wishbone, the jawbone, and the backbone. I talk about my grandmother saying all over the country. And today we're gonna highlight Bree Newsome Bass. And she certainly is a modern day freedom fighter. Many of you may recall that in June of 2015, she scaled a 30-foot flagpole in front of the South Carolina State House and removed the Confederate flag. She was arrested, but emerged from that as a shero and sparked an entire movement. Her courage and her sacrifice sparked a movement. And while reflecting on why she actually scaled that flagpole, she said the following: "I removed the flag not only in defiance of those who enslaved my ancestors, but in defiance of the oppression and the oppression that continues against Black people globally." That's what she said. She did that. Yeah, yes, those 3 bones, and Bree certainly personifies those. I remember meeting her and her husband as I was passing through the airport on one of my many national travels and having a brief conversation. And after that conversation, thinking to myself, that was her. Yes, that was absolutely her. And today's focus comes from this quote that Bree has: "Don't make idols of human beings. The code of celebrity is a big part of why we're in the mess we're in as a society, because we worship images of fame and fortune, often in the absence of substance." I'm not saying don't be a fan or don't have a hero. I'm saying don't worship human beings. Amen, Bree Newsome Bass, on that. Do not worship human beings. No one that walks the face of this earth is above reproach. No one is perfect. And especially in the political world, we definitely tend to idolize and prop people up and make it seem as though they cannot be critiqued or criticized. So Bree, thank you for that reminder. We can have heroes and sheroes, but we don't have to worship anybody. All people are just regular folks who are fallible. They can make mistakes. Thank you so much, Bree, for reminding us that there can be and should be champions in each and every one of us, and we all have the ability and the ability and the responsibility to stand up and fight back. You know what I want you to do? I definitely want you to keep the faith. And also with that faith, have a little fight. Until tomorrow.